Okay, so I'm very glad to start this new conversation. I'm Sara Roversi. I'm one of the founders of the Future Food Institute. And in this session, we are going to start to talk about innovation. This marathon that we are running today actually is to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day and is a 24-hour marathon that started very early in the morning for us in China. And then we flew to Japan, to India, then back again in China, Russia, Antarctica, and now we are talking from a little bit from Singapore, let's say. Of course, the main topic of the day is feeding the planet and food for Earth. We have been talking about farming system, regenerative agricultures, highlighting the topic of food safety, food security, food sovereignty. And now I'm so glad to be here with two great friends of mine that are working within the food innovation world, but overall are part of the Future Food Institute family. And I love what you're doing because you are two rock stars in the food innovation ecosystem at the global level. So I think that we need to start to warm up a little bit and start to talk about innovation. So I want to kick off the conversation, maybe starting from Valerio. Valerio will introduce himself, but actually is a guru in food innovation. He has been leading the innovation team in one of the biggest companies in Earth, and now is advising the biggest food industry. And of course, now is seeing which are the challenges and the opportunity that the entire sector is facing. Overall, now that we are all locked down and we are, thanks to this global pandemic, seeing, I think, the essentials, the essential needs, the essential good, but also what probably can be fixed to build a better, sustainable, and let's say more nutritious food ecosystem. Vale, you have to unmute you. Okay, go.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, I'm unmuted. I'm on video. Okay, perfect. So learning every day something new about technology. So knowing that now we're streamed with a lot of people around the world. So good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are. So really happy to have a bit of time to share some thinking, progressive thinking mainly. I've been working in the food industry for more than 30 years. Let's now go over the 30 years. And in this environment, I've been working in supply chain operations, in R&D, in the business. I was in Singapore leading the business for Nestle, and then I came to run innovation at the headquarters here. And since more than a year and a half, I've been really working on the outside world, having left Nestle at the end of 2018, and that's where I believe strongly I've been looking to the world with a different pair of eyes, in a more holistic way, in an agnostic way, and trying to see what are the things that I could contribute, being now outside to food companies or manufacturers in general, or people which are part of the system, but also within the startup or the VC environment, and trying to orchestrate a new way of looking, what I call a concept of brain heavy and asset light platform, which is basically working in aggregating good thinkers and good people and trying to roll it out through a platform. And the Future Food Network has been one of the platforms I have associated myself, because I believe strongly the network is more powerful than individual people. So really happy to be sharing some of my thinking, and back to you, Sara, for some more questions specifically in this sense.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Actually, what you are highlighting is matching so much with the SDG framework and the last one of the SDG. So the SDG 17, that is partnership for the goals. And this has been a topic that have been tackled since the beginning from many different perspectives. What I've seen until now is that also in the food industry, everyone was working like in a silos mode. Now more than ever, we are seeing that the industry in these days is understanding that also the food chain need to change. that we have a lot of dark areas within the food chain, and probably the fact of starting co-designing with this new mindset in becoming all systemic thinker, it's pretty much crucial. So now I want to jump to Adam. Adam, you are in the level of the food innovation environment in Singapore. We all know that Singapore has been always, at least in the last decades, one of the most innovative place also for food industry, also because the government is supporting so much innovation. And also there are a lot of institutions that are facilitating, say, this kind of catalyzation of innovators in Singapore area. But from your perspective, you are working with industries, you are working with designers, innovators, and so on. What you see is the crucial elements that we need really to start designing in a different way, and which are the values that you find in Singapore that we can maybe bring and use as a way to cross-pollinate positively other areas where actually innovation is not so developed like where you are.
Right. Well, I guess you said co-design. I think co-design, collaboration, co-creation, all the C words. That's what it's about. Singapore, as most people might know, is a small country, 5.5 million people, with no natural resources. It's tiny. And so it operates under constraints. And so Singapore is all about how do we bring the best of the world. That's actually how I met Valerio, bringing outside expertise into Singapore. Likewise, you, Sarah. We've got to bring the best minds together. There's a real commitment both from government and corporations that we know we have to work together. We've been privileged to work with Unilever here. We operate a very interesting sort of world-beating space called Level 3 in partnership with Unilever. It's an innovation hub. It's innovation-led, co-working supported. It's inside the Unilever building, but we operate it independently. It's very unusual. We have 70 startups working out of there, 8 large corporates like Syngenta, Microsoft, Mitsubishi Bank. They all work in there. And so we've got this constant coming together, matching. We, Padang, the company that I'm a co-founder of, we describe ourselves as an innovation catalyst. We match startups with large corporations to help them accelerate sustainable growth by utilizing different innovation techniques. But to me, it's about sustainable growth, bringing the right people together in the right space, and magic happens. As a side stat, 35% of the companies, the sort of 70 or so startups working in Level 3 actually have started to collaborate with Unilever. The model works, and it's representative of the mindset of Singapore about collaboration. That's what we need, but we got to bring people together.
Cool. I want to ask you something, because of course, when we talk about innovation and startup, there is a big elephant in the room that are investors and finance. Yep. And these days, I've been reading a lot, and with our Good After COVID-19.org initiative, we had the chance to start to talk and interact with people like Paul Pullman, visionary people and thought leaders that actually are talking about moral finance, impact investment, and all of those topics since years. And of course, now are seeing that as a very urgent need. I'm asking from your different perspectives, how do you see that this is gonna impact also your environment? How do you see investors, VC acting now? Because for sure, this is gonna be crucial. And also we all know that this crisis is anyway are going to generate a huge impact on employment everywhere in the world. So also the startup ecosystem is going to be a little bit impact on that.
Sure. Do you want to take it,
Adam? No, you can start, or you don't necessarily need to follow alphabetic orders.
Absolutely, there'll be impact. But the amount of money sitting in the VC funds at the moment, their business is about spending that money. Valuations are most probably coming down because we've been getting a bit frothy in different markets around the world. So some valuations will be settling down. The VC's business is about investing money. They want to invest that money. So again, it's about the startups coming up with the right opportunities so that they can invest. Yes, the big companies, some will be saying, we've got to cut some costs, some innovation agendas might go aside. But the stats are there. I think it was, I hope it's Bain, put out something showing recently that you do need to continue to have that mission. That's where someone like Paul Polman, when he was running Unilever, just kept going straight, that you had to follow the agenda. There needs to be investment in R&D. You can't stop. There'll be some bumps, but the companies that are truly purpose-driven and understand what they must deliver will continue to invest, and they will see some opportunities in this. Some practices will change, most probably because of the issues around supply chain. We might see more opportunities in automation activities around agri-tech, storage techniques, different types of transportation, because social distancing is not going away. There's a whole bunch of things that will stay with us. So I think while it won't be an enormous surge, there are a lot of people who still are waiting to get back out and get investing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Adam said. Definitely remember when we had the crisis of 2008, what happened? A lot of people lost jobs. And that's where the whole movement of startups started being created around MIT. In fact, one of the first accelerators was called Mass Challenge. Mass Challenge was a group of people that put together professors, students, and academics and starting mentoring the people to say, how do we run a new business called startup? So the startup movement happened out of a crisis. And I'm convinced out of this current situation, there will be a new evolution of the innovation space. At the end, you need to connect the demand and the offer in a very crowded world of innovation today. You have many, many actors. This requires normally huge investment. Therefore, the creation of new platforms, I call it open venturing platform, for a better word, and stop talking about open innovation, which is sort of, for my opinion, is a dead animal now, because it requires bringing the outside in. There's a shift of paradigm where the value is created by the ability to connect different actors in the innovation world from the demand and the offer, right? So it creates a curated ecosystem of connection for fast proof of concept validation, which is this fast iteration that you guys do very well in the future of food. It guides the ecosystem and nurtures the ecosystem with new ideas. And this is all for one reason, to ensure that the needs that are on the demand side are met. This is all based on what we call the social network theory, which today we are experiencing with the COVID. The social network theory is where people with different interests get together to talk about things. It's happening in sharing a song, in sharing an emotion, and sharing a platform where I can do my gym. And so this will have an impact, certainly out of the COVID, into the innovation space with new actors and new players, where different ecosystems need to bond and get together.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm picking one of the questions that someone from the audience on YouTube is asking. So Singapore in the last decade has been one of the biggest promoters for innovation, and also in food, one of the ones that were pushing hard. Which are the areas in food that you see most crucial now?
Okay, I can go this time. Adam, I'll beat you up.
Okay, you go.
There is a big initiative of the government called 3030. And by 2030, so in 10 years from now, 30% of the food that the supply of food in Singapore needs to be based on Singapore lands. Now, this puts a lot of strain, and normally the ratio should be 10% should be proteins, 10% should be vegetable, and 10% should be fruit. This puts a lot of constraint in a place, which Adam rightly said, which has not a lot of land, and therefore there's a need of thinking in a totally different way. I think the area of alternative proteins is an area which is still at the beginning of its process and discovery. And that's where a concept like nutrition density needs to become part of the way of doing things. Today, everybody's looking into pea, chick protein, the usual suspects. We know that those are going to interfere with the developing countries where these are normally staple food for the people to have proteins. And therefore, there's a competing area. So looking into other type of territories like algae, like mycotox, fungi, and other areas becomes very important. Vertical farming. So I think Singapore is putting a lot of money on the table to discover new ways of looking at this. My simple answer, I give it to Adam to continue.
No, I mean, Valerio is absolutely right. Going from 10%, because we import 90% of our food. So going from 10% local to 30%, that's a 3x. That's a big thing to do in 10 years, but that's the type of things that Singapore likes to do. I'd like to add to your list, Valerio, lab-grown meat, cultivated meat. Singapore is looking at that very closely. Shiok Meats is a great local example of doing that. So I think we're going to see more. There's a longer runway with that, of course. But to Valerio's point, I think what Impossible is doing and beyond is great. But I'm a little concerned we're focusing too much on the hipster burger type of activity with alternative proteins. I think we've got to be focusing on nutrition. There is not enough focus on nutrition. 800 million people going to bed every night hungry is not right. We have 650 million people living in our region. Many are very challenged. 70 million smallholder farmers operating across Southeast Asia in subsistence farming. These people are doing it very tough. And so I think we've got to have a totally systemic view of food. Now, sometimes people don't like me saying the food system is broken. Let's say it's challenged. But I do think we've got to, your earlier speaker was talking about smallholder farmers. We've got to start at the beginning, what they're growing, why they're growing it. Ultimately, so much of the food is then being fed to animals that humans are eating. We've got balances out of whack. So I like to start with ultimately food is for nutrition. We want people to be nourished in a way that also favors and works within the boundaries of the planet. To me, that's where we need to be going.
Thank you so much to both of you. Actually, I'm picking one sentence and about agriculture. I was in a previous session where one of the speakers was saying agriculture is not an urban issue, it's just a rural thing. I a little bit disagree with that because I think that if we have to think about how many we're going to be in the future and how many we're going to be in the future in big cities. So the 70% of the world is going to live in the less than the 2% of the space and just in big cities. So we are talking about unbelievable numbers. We have to think about how we can connect rural areas with urban areas, but also how might we produce food closer, also in urban areas, of course. So both and within the Future Food ecosystem, we have been launching a campaign to adopt top farmers and also to support the agriculture. Of course, we are based in Italy, so agriculture is part of our DNA, but also we understand that this is going to be one of the challenges. And Singapore, for sure, with what you were saying, is facing that in a very smart way. Another thing that I want to ask you before we close, we don't have a lot of time, but I would love to push on you to have some insight about food waste. So this year, for the first time, the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, is going to celebrate the World Day of Awareness for Food Loss and Waste. Of course, for the food industry, I see this as a big opportunity, and I want to ask you what you see, and if also in the investment and startup and innovation ecosystem, you see interesting and positive seeds of innovation related to waste and loss.
I would like to argue the word you're using, food waste. I would use upcycling, because there's a lot of the so-called leftovers, ugly fruit, for example, or ugly vegetables, are not used and thrown away, not because there's anything wrong with the nutrition value, but it's just because they don't fit into a certain type of shape. So there's a big discrimination. So upcycling means making things that today are not valued to the right value that they have, and they have nutrition value, they're all good. Similar happens to the peels of some vegetables and other elements, where the biggest amount of minerals and vitamins are on the peel. So is there a way where we can recover this? Integrating fiber out of apple peels is something which today is becoming a very important thing. And we know for microbiome reasons, we need to increase the amount of fiber we're eating. But some of the fibers that are traditionally used are not good from a taste point of view. They look like horsey meals for horses, right? Very chewy, very difficult.
Yeah.
And when you use instead fruit-based type of fibers, you have a total different element. Using fibers from food to create packaging material is another opportunity. So I think the whole industry needs to re-look to the value streams that are created out of what is called the waste streams and upcycle them into new ways of doing things and getting to solutions for the needs we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are real opportunities. We all know that we've heard the stat that's often used that 30% of food is wasted, either in field, typically in developing countries, and at home or at the consumer level in developed countries. Interestingly, though, I'd like to say that most people's fridges are being far more utilized during lockdown and COVID. I mean, if I look at mine, I haven't thrown anything out. We're reusing everything. There's a new mindset, and let's hope that survives this period, that people take greater use of repurposing food in the fridge to make different kinds of meals, because we're experimenting. And I think this experimentation, Sarah, which is what you guys do so magnificently, is trying new things, experimenting with new foodstuffs. And as you say, Valerio, with peels, just doing different stuff. And it's good. It comes back to my other thing about nutrition and nourishment. So I think governments realize that there's money in waste. We cannot feed the world if we try to project on current volumes and projections. So we need to repurpose food, be more efficient. We do need to, I think, assist people change their mindsets. The concept of ugly food, yeah, it's pretty shocking that people feel like that. We need to change some of those. So there's behavior change, and then there's opportunities to help people make better use of their food, so nothing actually ends up in the bin. Likewise, back to helping the smallholder farmers, better supply chains so things don't get lost in the field or spoil in transport.
Thank you so much. And actually what you say is absolutely right. We just ended up a big survey spread a little bit all around the world. And what we are tracking is that in homes now, people is wasting almost nothing. So the 66% is saying that is wasting almost nothing. And the 33% is saying that is wasting much less than before. So if you see the numbers of 3 months ago, of course, we can say that we are learning by doing, and we are really training ourselves while we are in the lockdown. And I think that this forced reset is really giving us the opportunity to reconnect and rebalance also our personal priorities.
I think we're finding the right way. We're finding the right way to do it. And a big learning out of this COVID is many people have discovered they are good cooks. They're good waste recycling people, because I saw people using peels of potatoes to do a gourmet type of dinner. And more than anything else, nature is back. I think you all saw the images in Cape Town of the penguins working freely in the Cape Town roads. So nature is taking back what we took away from them. So I hope when we restart, we have a good opportunity to restart the bottom with the right attitude, the right behaviors.
Yeah, I really think that probably this situation is making us all better humans. So let's hope to remain better humans. So I really thank you both for being with us in this incredible marathon. We still have a long way to do until tonight. Thank you so much for what you're doing to support the big industries and the global food ecosystem to fix the little things that needs to be fixed to build, and let's say to say cannot say anymore that the broken system is the food one. So let's try to keep working on that. Thank you so much for being with us.
And bye to everybody.
From Singapore, with you, we're going to fly to the Emirates, so in Bahrain and as well in Saudi Arabia with Claudia. We are very happy because in the next session, we are going to have friends coming from the FAO ecosystem and also from UNIDO. So both FAO and UNIDO are two of our most greatest partners when we are working with them on several projects with UNIDO. Last year, we have been running the UNIDO Award for Agri-Food, selecting hundreds and hundreds of projects in many different countries. And together with FAO, we decided to do this incredible marathon. And since last year, we are co-designing, managing, and producing the Climate Shapers Bootcamp. And so we are very glad to have them with us from many different parts of the world today. So Claudia, now the floor is yours. And you're in a very important place because also in Saudi Arabia this year, there's going to be the G20. There is the G20. And so it's very important, I think, the message that is going to be delivered in this session from this part of the world that now is creating a lot of attention on those topics. Thank you, Claudia. And let's go on with our marathon.
Thank you.
Give me 5.
I give you 5. Ciao.
Bye, thank you. Ciao, Valerio.
Grazie, Adam
Ciao,
and
ciao.
Valerio.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Adam.
guys. I'll stay in line on the other one. Ciao, bye.
Ciao.